Hi guys! So in this video I thought I'd talk about some of my favorite Japanese snacks that I used to eat growing up. I grew up in Southern California and I'm half Korean and half Japanese. And when I was growing up I lived near my extended family on my dad's side, which is my Korean side. And every once in a while we would have family gatherings. And I just remember that my grandfather would bring all of the grandkids an assortment of Japanese snacks. And I had a lot of cousins. I think there were probably 8 of us who lived in the same general area. And so we would just have so much fun. It would just be like chaos. And so I have a lot of fun memories playing with my cousins, and my grandpa would bring us treats, and every once in a while he'd just also bring like a random gift for all of our families. So like a telescope or a keyboard or just some random item that was nice. And so whenever I have certain snacks, it just reminds me of my childhood, and there are certain snacks that my family seemed to enjoy buying. And I still enjoy those to this day, although I am trying to cut down on the amount of sugar that I eat in general. It seems like there's always an H Mart or Korean market everywhere, but it's less common to find a Japanese supermarket. And the one that we used to always see in LA was called Yaohan, and then later on they changed their name to Mitsuwa, and now I think it's called Tokyo Central. But there was one in downtown LA, Irvine, and Torrance, or like the South Bay area. And so that's where you could always find a good assortment of Japanese snacks. Now you can find a lot of these things at the Korean market, and they carry just a huge variety, but every once in a while I like to go to a market that is specifically a Japanese market and just look around and buy stuff. And usually you can find things at the Korean market, or you can buy them online, but sometimes they have things that you can't always find. So I always try to look for those little gems. So this is the first candy that's super nostalgic for me. This is the Botan rice candy. And my kids also like this, but I just remember my mom used to get this for me. And I think I remember going with her to this Japanese shop that sold like kimonos and things for Obon, which is a Japanese summer festival, and sometimes she would buy like a box of manju, but I don't really know what she was buying there. But I remember getting this Botan rice candy package, and this is a fun candy because it has this rice paper wrapper, and it looks like you're gonna have to remove the paper, but it's actually just edible rice paper. And now when I cook rice, I can see there's a little film of rice that looks like paper sometimes that comes off of the side of the rice pot, and so that's what that is. But I just thought it was so fun because it's edible and it seems like you're eating paper. So here's another candy that's super nostalgic for me. I remember my parents getting this for me, and this is the Chelsea butterscotch candy, and there's like 2 or 3 different versions. This one has sort of a yogurt flavor to it, but there's a pink one that has a more butterscotch flavor. And these are so good. They're kind of like Werther's, but better. This is like Werther's with a mix of the yogurt drink. And I feel like this disappeared from my life for the longest time. I ate it as a child, but then at some point I stopped eating this or stopped seeing it in the grocery stores. And then when I went back to Japan, I saw this and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember this candy. And I bought it and it was so good. But if you haven't tried this, I highly recommend it. Here's another candy that feels really nostalgic for me. I can't remember who bought this for me or when I ate it, but it was something that I remember eating many times. And these are just animal crackers. I did eat a lot of the Barnum and Bailey animal crackers that come in the little zoo box, but this is sort of a Japanese version, and it's a little bit different. It's more of like a butter cookie. It has this buttery flavor to it, and this is kind of fun because it has the animal shapes as well as the animal names. So I don't know, it's just kind of fun to eat different animal shapes, isn't it? These have sort of a slightly buttery artificial taste, but they're really good and my kids like them too. Here's another candy that's a classic. This is the Apollo candy, and this is basically a little chocolate that has chocolate on the bottom and strawberry on the top, and it's in the shape of this tiny little cone. And it seems so simple, but for some reason these are just so delicious. And this is another thing that I ate when I was growing up and kind of rediscovered when I moved back to Japan. I hadn't had this in a long time, but so delicious. Somehow I managed to snag myself this Sanrio themed box, but the chocolates were not any different. They were just the same, and the cap had a little picture of Hello Kitty on it. Next we have Koala's March. I remember this being called Koala Yummies, and I'm a little confused because I see that it says Lotte on it, but I thought this was a Japanese snack. So, and Lotte is a Korean brand. But I found this mango version. I definitely did not have this flavor growing up. The classic flavor was strawberry and then sometimes chocolate. But this was a favorite of mine. Leave a comment below if you're a kid who grew up in the 80s and 90s and you're Asian and you grew up in the US. Comment below if you ate this snack or what your favorite snack was growing up. So really, who can resist this cute little koala biscuit? Each of the biscuits has a different koala picture on it. I mean, some of them are the same, but there are just so many different ones. You might get like only 2 of each, or maybe sometimes only 1 of each. And they're all so adorable. And nowadays they have different flavors depending on the season. But I think my favorite is always just the classic strawberry flavor. So I don't know if a lot of people eat this anymore, but my dad and my grandma always used to get this particular candy. Out of all the candies in the supermarket, they seem to like this one for some reason. And I think they must have liked this plum flavor. It says it's a plum flavored milk candy, but the plum isn't very strong. It's just basically like a milky sweet candy that's really good. And I remember always having this growing up. And then this is another thing when I stopped eating this at some point. And I kind of rediscovered it when I moved back to Japan. And I didn't really buy it there because this wasn't really my favorite candy. But since I was making this video, I decided to repurchase this and try it again. And when I looked at the ingredients, there's actually a lot of artificial colors and flavors in this. And it wasn't quite as delicious as I remembered it being. Okay, so if you did not have Koala's March, chances are you had Yanya. This is very similar. It's kind of a mixture actually of the Japanese animal cookies and the pink strawberry chocolate that's inside the Koala Yummies, but it's like emulsified, so you can dip your sticks into the pink chocolate, or there's a chocolate version, right? But this is a little bit different than I remember from my childhood. This version seemed to have these letters printed on every stick, and I don't remember this. I think when I had this, the sticks were just plain, and then you would dip it in the chocolate. But the printing on the sticks makes it a little bit more fun, I have to say. And so this is another super artificial tasting snack, but it's so good. I didn't eat this quite as much as I had the Koala Yummies or Pocky, but I still like this and I think it's really good. So this is something that my grandfather used to get us, and there's a few different kinds of these cookies, but they're all like individually wrapped and they're really good. This one is the Lumonde cookie, and this is another thing that I used to eat when I was little, but then stopped eating it and rediscovered it when I moved back to Japan. And this has to be my favorite Japanese cookie snack. It's made of this really thin wafer and then coated in this I don't know what kind of flavor chocolate this is. Sort of like a caramelly flavored chocolate, but it's not too sweet. And it's crispy and light. Look at those little layers. This is like my favorite. And last but not least, Pocky. My personal favorite is strawberry, even though I've tried so many different flavors in Japan, including exotic flavors like Kyoho grape and blueberry. The strawberry one is always my favorite, and I've had this consistently throughout my life, and I still eat it today with my kids. So now that I'm getting older, I try not to eat too much sugar and I try to limit my snacking, but I always like to go and walk up and down the snack aisle and see if there's anything new. And I kind of like how they're bringing the newer flavors over here. So in Japan they have seasonal flavors, and every season they have like a certain flavor. I think matcha comes out in winter, and then the berries come out in like February. And so they don't really follow the seasons as closely in the US, but I like seeing all the new flavors. However, I think that when it comes down to it, I always go back to liking the strawberry flavor of everything because that's kind of nostalgic for me, and I think it also tastes the best. Anyway, let me know in the comments below what some of your favorite Japanese snacks are, and if you guys are interested to see part 2 of this, there's a lot of other snacks that I didn't feature in this video, but that I do like. As always, I want to give a big thank you and shout out to my Patreons and channel members. Thank you guys so much for supporting me. I really appreciate it, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!